This is TWiT.
Hey folks, I'm Ant Pruitt, and what do you get your favorite tech geek that has everything? A Club TWiT gift subscription, of course. TWiT podcasts keep them informed and entertained with the most relevant tech news podcasts available. With the Club TWiT subscription, they get access to all of our podcasts ad-free. They also get access to our members-only Discord, access to exclusive outtakes, behind the scenes, and special content such as AMAs, which I just love hosting, plus exclusive shows such as Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows, and the Untitled Linux Show. Purchase your geek's gift at twit.tv/clubtwit, and it will thank you every day.
You know, we talk on this network and on the shows all the time about the importance of protecting your accounts with, a strong password. How do you manage that? Password managers are the best way to do that as far as I'm concerned. But any security-minded professional will tell you that no system is 100% tied down. And this week we're reminded of that. Some news that a LastPass security incident that actually happened back in August may have been more severe than what we were told back then. New information kind of points to that. Joining us to talk about LastPass in light of this recent news is none other than Steve Gibson from TWiT's Security Now podcast and grc.com. Welcome back to the show, Steve.
Hey guys, great to be with you.
Yeah, good to have you back, sir. It's always good to get you on. So we really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us about LastPass, because I produce behind the scenes. I do the live production of Security Now. So I've heard you talk many times about LastPass, password managers and everything. So we're going to kind of get into, in a little bit, we'll get into kind of how you're feeling, kind of the temperature of LastPass. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about this incident that happened back in August. Tell us a little bit about that. That's kind of like the preface for what we've learned about this week. So we should probably start there.
Yeah. So probably the most annoying thing about, any kind of a breach or security problem that any commercial company has is they're not going to tell you as much as you'd like to know. And this is the case if about 100 days ago, toward the end of August, when there was this first intrusion that they reported. It was, don't worry, nothing to see here. Everybody's data is safe. We had a little problem. The bad guys were roaming around in our system for 4 days, but it wasn't the production system. It was some developer system. So, those are not connected. So everything's fine. Renew your subscription when it comes due.
And not to mention, I should just mention just real quick, last week was Black Friday. So we got a bunch of sales happening, and LastPass was in on that. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are like, oh, finally it's on sale. And they get in and then they see the news. But anyways, continue.
And so just so everyone knows where I stand, back, I don't even know how long ago it was, I reviewed for the Security Now podcast a bunch of password managers. I spoke to the guy who wrote LastPass, a guy by the name of Joe Segrist. He was more available to me just for whatever reason than I was. He was the only person at any of the password managers that I was able to speak to. He explained the way it worked. It all made sense. He provided me with not source code, but what he did was he was able to show me and provided a site where I could see that what he was describing to me was absolutely the truth. That is the way they were encrypting on the client side, so that they never got any of our passwords in the clear was proven to be the case. I selected LastPass, started talking about it, jumping up and down, saying this is the one to use. And I'm looking at the LastPass icon over here on Firefox. It's over here on Chrome. It's over on Edge. And it's still there today. It's the password manager I'm still using. They're no longer a TWiT sponsor. They were for a long time. They became a sponsor after, and maybe as a consequence of my endorsement of them. I chose them before they were a TWiT sponsor. And, since then they've wandered off, and Bitwarden is now a sponsor on the TWiT network. And that's an excellent password manager. I didn't switch because, LastPass is still working for me, and more for reasons of inertia than anything else. But so here's the point: is 100 days ago, at the end of August, that incident didn't make me switch. This incident, it makes me feel a little less comfortable, because one of the things I said back then was, well, if an employee screws up and learns their lesson, do you fire them because they screwed up? Or do you think, well, now we have a better employee because, they've learned their lesson? Well, I would have hoped that LastPass had learned their lesson from 90 days ago and wasn't going to have another problem. They're saying that some information that escaped then was used in order to, allow somebody to get back in. Well, that's uncomfortable. So I know there are people who left, 3 months ago. There will probably be people who leave now. I'm not going to leave, because and this is the thing that they keep stressing, and it's not incorrect, but of course it is for their benefit and it's promotional, and that is that what they're holding for each of their users is a blob, a pre-encrypted blob. At one point, we had a term on Security Now, PIE, PIE, pre-internet encryption. The idea, and also, of course, TNO, trust no one. The idea being that before this ever leaves your computer, it's so well encrypted that all that the cloud is doing, all LastPass, and it's very much like iCloud, although Apple is able to get into iCloud stuff, so the analogy is not as good there. LastPass is unable to decrypt the blob of passwords that they're holding for us. And the only reason there's a cloud at all is that we'd like our various devices to stay synchronized, right? If I'm using LastPass over on an iPhone, as I do, then if I create a new account and website and add that information on my iPhone, I would like my Windows desktop to know about it when I'm using it next. So basically, they provide this blob of encrypted data to all of your various clients, and it's the client that then uses your master LastPass password to decrypt the blob. So and of course, I guess there's billing information that they have, or some other information that might be sensitive. I don't know. But anyway, so that's sort of where I stand and what's going on with them.
Is LastPass giving any sort of guidance to users right now? I know I got the email, and it's kind of the typical standard email, like, okay, hey, just want you to know something happened, but it's cool, we got it, and everything. Is there anything that really users who want to stick around with LastPass can do in light of this to be? There probably isn't. It's really all in LastPass hands at this point, right?
Right. On the client side, you put in your master password and it hashes it some insane number of times, like 1,000 times, I think it is. It's called PBKDF2, password-based key derivation function 2, because 1 wasn't good enough. So, and the user is actually able to change that number. There's a setting in your client where you could say, oh, I want to hash this 5,000 times. Anyway, so the point is, it just makes it virtually impossible for even hardware assisted password brute forcing things to make any headway. So, it really is strong encryption. Since that password, your master password, never leaves you. LastPass doesn't have it. Hopefully nobody has it. Them having a problem holding on to their stuff at that end doesn't mean that you need to change anything at your end. So I agree with you. I would argue, I'm sure 90 days ago, they lost some customers. Now they're going to lose some customers. As a responsible public corporation, they must report breaches. They've engaged the services of Mandiant, they said in the letter that you and I both received, and the letter was full of, don't worry, everything's safe. No user data. They did say that some customer information was exposed, but not the password blob, which totally makes sense.
Right.
If
That's the most important part.
Yeah,
well, potentially. Actually, now that I say that, that's incredibly important. But I also have a lot of other really important stuff stored in there. Potentially, people have their credit card numbers stored in a secure note.
That's all part of the blob.
Okay, so that's part of the blob. We say password
yes.
blob, but it's really like every kind of protected, encrypted data within that we store within there, not just passwords.
Correct, and I'm the same as you. It knows my credit cards for quickly filling out credit card forms and all that stuff. That is all in the single master blob, which is encrypted, and all they're getting is it looks actually like you can't tell the difference between it and completely random noise. It's just noise bits, and there's nothing that they can do with it except hand it back to you when you are on a different machine, and then again you use your master password in order to decrypt it, and now it makes sense to your client here. I don't know what other information they have. If they do like recurring billing, then maybe they would have credit card information. Maybe they've got phone numbers. If they want to do second factor authentication stuff, there are things that they would have to interact with users. Other than that, I use a time-based second factor. I'm a big believer in that. That's the type of multi-factor that you want to use. So they would have the key that I use for that, but that wouldn't do anybody any good without my master password. So, I'm not planning to leave. I guess that's my point. But I totally understand if people are like, well, let's go somewhere else because these guys don't seem competent. And the problem is from the outside, we have no way of knowing. I don't know what their internal mechanisms are and protections, and if and they're not telling us because they don't have to. So they're just putting a good face on it, and they're saying everything's fine here, nothing to see.
Yeah. Well, I'm super thrilled that we got you on to talk about this because this was really one of the main questions that I had, being behind the scenes on Security Now each and every week and hearing you talk about password managers and LastPass. When I saw this, I was like, oh, is this going to be the thing that makes Steve go, I think I'm going to move on to greener pastures? But it sounds like, no, it sounds like you're sticking there. And I have to imagine you're going to be talking about this next week on Security Now as well. So anyone who wants, potentially we'll have more information by the time next Tuesday rolls around. And if so, I'm pretty sure Steve's going to be on the case. So, Steve, thank you so much for hopping onto this show for a change. Of course, people can follow your work on Security Now, but also grc.com is where people should go to check out SpinRite and all the other awesome things you're doing over there. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. My pleasure.